ECAfrica100, connecting entrepreneurs on the African continent and beyond. Profiling 100 entrepreneurs in 100 days. Tune in as we amplify African excellence with your host, Vanessa Perumal, on Africa Business Radio.
Hi guys, thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Connect Dialogues, ECAfrica100. It has been an experience. It continues to be a learning curve, and your feedback around the continent has been encouraging. I'm using the continent today in a very global sense because our next guest is someone who's very dear to me actually, and I keep saying this on all the shows, and Entrepreneur Connect actually is about mindsets and connecting people. But in today's conversation, you'll meet Deshun Deysel. You should be Googling Deshun. Your children should be knowing about her. You know, we all come into a space in time where people frame us. And so in framing Deshun, I'm so excited to introduce you to a change agent in the human development, human resource, human capacitating space, in the training space, as opposed to the first black woman that climbed up Mount Everest and is a mountain climber. Am I introducing you correctly?
Well, I like that introduction because it really is quite relevant for what I'm doing right now.
Tell us about what you're doing right now.
Well, right now my business is focused on helping companies move away from old performance management systems into a mindset of performance development. And this is based on some global trends, some research that's come out of some really credible organizations like Deloitte, like MIT Sloan, like Oxford, Gallup. So all these organizations have done research and found that there's a shift happening in human capital development in the world.
I'm almost tempted to tell the listeners to go and grab their cup of tea, stop the podcast, bring your pen and paper, tweet about this, because it's like a masterclass in international best practice in
yes,
performance.
Indeed. It is indeed, because what is really happening is that I think organizations are starting to feel stuck in the old mechanisms for performance management, but they don't really know what to do at present. So the old system, just to give our listeners an understanding, is you have a job, you have a manager, that manager as a boss, the company has a performance management system, and part of that performance management system is to have an annual sit down with your manager to talk about how you've done for the year. Now, that's an old system that maybe worked in the 20th century, but guess what? We're almost 19 years into the 21st century, and actually there's a shift happening. That shift is precipitated by the exponential rate of change because of technology. But secondly, we've got digital natives coming into the workforce, and that's the millennials and the Gen Zs. They demand a different way to be interacted with and engaged with in the workforce. They want continuous feedback and coaching, and that's the global research that's come out of all these organizations I mentioned earlier.
So you speak so digitally and you speak so globally at the same time. Is your product scalable? Is it reachable to somebody who's got camels? Someone in Morocco is an example right now, someone in Kenya.
It is
How
indeed
effective? Tell us about your model.
Well, the model is both digital and interpersonal. So if I'm selling it to a big corporation, the idea is that they buy a set amount of diagnostics, which their people do repeatedly. We suggest once per month so that people have an opportunity to check in with themselves. But second to that, the interpersonal side is micro-coaching, where we actually train our clients how to do a micro-coaching conversation so that they can unlock performance on the go. So
you can do this virtually?
Yes, you can. So the global trend is actually to move away from the annual performance review to the ongoing feedback and coaching model, which is the solution that we offer.
Okay, so I get it. And because our time is so short on this program, I want to talk about Deshun the mum and Deshun the mountain climber and Deshun the public figure and the trailblazer. What's your life been? Are you defined as a mountaineer? Are you the first black woman? Tell us about this labeling.
Well, I hate labeling, but, the official story about me and what most people know is that I was the first black woman in the world to step on the foots of Mount Everest.
In the world. This is a hand clap. This is a hand clap for me.
I didn't know that at the time because I was just pursuing a passion for adventure, and I managed to get onto the first South African expedition.
I remember that.
To go to Mount Everest back in 1996, and just being on the slopes of Everest automatically made me the first black woman to have done so. And so from a trailblazer perspective, perspective, I guess I could say that I'm always attracted to firsts. I like pioneering stuff. I attach myself to things that pioneer, which is why I'm here today. And sometimes I start pioneering things, like the thing that my business is doing right now. We are first to market, especially in South Africa, with a product offering like the Peak Performance Toolkit.
So I want to tell listeners, Deshun is very much part of the ECAfrica network. And in fact, because we want to come to 54 countries, I so know that she will be doing lots of this interviews herself. And I like the fact that she's so global, but I also feel that continentally, we need to focus, Deshun, on how we're going to pull this movement together. Whether it's across performance management systems, whether it's across human resource development, and just about conversations and dialogues. What can we learn as we create the future? What can we do better?
Well, one of the things I want to start off with in response to you, Vanessa, is to really help us as Africans understand that we don't need to look outside in the world for our solutions. We can actually birth our solutions right here on this continent. It does not mean that we don't have to draw on resources from the rest of the world. So, for instance, the Peak Performance Toolkit, it's unique in its format, but it draws from global research. It draws from all the work I've done with international companies. It draws from my experience as a mountaineer on 5 continents. So yes, we can draw on and be inspired by what comes out of the global community, but really, if we can just find a way to make that unique to the needs that are on the African continent. So when I first designed the Peak Performance Toolkit, it was for here. It was for South Africa. Right. I'm just now finding that the global community is very interested in it as well.
Okay, a number of these conversations are going to get really personal and deep, and this is one. This program is about pushing boundaries to be economically relevant to your time, to have business sense that makes money for your business. But we seem to be struggling as mums, as entrepreneurs, and how do we network in a Pan-African economy?
I think, Vanessa, in response to your question, ECAfrica100 is a brilliant platform to mobilize. It mobilizes entrepreneurs. It creates awareness around what entrepreneurs are actually about. To build an ecosystem. And once you have an ecosystem, you have leverage. So I think with that ecosystem, one can then lobby organizations and governments and departments. Like we've got a small business department, and we all know that cash flow is a major issue for entrepreneurs and for small business. Why not use this ecosystem to lobby the Department for Small Business and say, look, payment terms from organizations need to be looked at. There need to be 90-day cycle leniency when it comes to interest, for instance, that entrepreneurs need to pay on bonds that are ticked over every month.
And maybe we could learn from banking institutions across the continent.
That is my point, is that once you have a community, once you have an ecosystem, you have leverage. And with that leverage, you can influence policy making, you can influence the way business gets done, and I think ECAfrica100 is a brilliant
And we should explore this because you follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We often come on and we share our pain. The thing about the digital is that we're so connected. People are worried about their identity stolen. I think some people would like us to keep ours internally. But Deshun speaks about payment, and I'm not sure how you do it in your countries. But in South Africa, it's a real issue. You get paid sometimes 90 days after the event, which means you crippled.
Exactly.
And apparently in Kenya, they have like a stockveld, which we have, which is birthed just to make sure that you are able to leverage cash flow.
Yes, absolutely. And I've noticed here with us too, we do have entrepreneurs who speak to that space. But for instance, if I've got a 60,000 Rand invoice outstanding with a client, and I go to this organization saying, please give me a loan based on my invoice, they will take 6,000 Rand, which is 10% return for the loan that they've given me, which is a bit hefty if you're a small startup. So my question then is to those decision makers who create policy, can you not engage with banking organizations and institutions and say, instead of entrepreneurs being charged every month for a bond, why not give them leeway for 90 days because they tend to be paid on a 90-day cycle?
So make it relevant to the times.
Make it relevant to the time, and therefore you now, not only do you stimulate entrepreneurship, you stimulate the economy, because for everything that you can't pay on month end, you get interest charged on that, which almost doubles the thing that is now outstanding for you to pay. there. So it's just little things, and I don't think it's a little thing. I actually think it's a big thing, but I think it's lobbying for policies like that will really give entrepreneurship traction in our country and on the continent.
We really have to go. I like the fact that you lobby and for traction, and in the digital age we can stand up for each other.
Absolutely, with the leverage we're creating now.
And I know there's a number of platforms we've converted in this conversation as we built the network. So engage with Deshun. There's WeChat Business coming up, We Talk Business Talks, Africa Radio Broadcast, Channel Africa. There's so many where you connect with her, but also connect in her own ecosystem. Give us your hashtags again. Tell us where we can find you and your last words of wisdom.
I would say if people want to really have a feel of what I do, go to the website www.peakperformancetoolkit.biz.biz. So that's www.peakperformancetoolkit.biz. You can also engage with our app, which is app.peakperformancetoolkit.biz. That app will allow you to do a self-reflection, which is part of the digital platform.
Do we pay for that?
No, it'll be free for the audience, but just a one-time. Yeah, you can do it that one time. So app.peakperformancetoolkit.biz. And then what you can do is call me up and say, let's have a 10-minute coaching conversation online via Skype or Zoom.
I'm going to take you up for JT Comms. I am going to do that.
Absolutely. We can do that so that people can interact with the platform I've created, but also see what it can do for them. So it's a once-off, but for this audience only who are listening to the podcast, please feel free to go to the app.peakperformancetoolkit.biz, B-I-Z.
The time just goes on this conversation. Peak performance is where we're at. I loved today's conversation because it puts activism back into entrepreneurship, which we don't do for ourselves, like lobby banks, pay, give us an extra lead time to pay, share your experiences of how you do it in your country, and hey, you may have some camels for us that we can trade here in South Africa.
That's camel the animal, hey, not the cigarette.
And we may be able to convert our 90-day cash flow into your ecosystem. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Keep engaging with us. And keep on inspiring, guys. Keep on sharing those lessons. We love a Pan-African conversation. It's just a wonderful place to be.
You've been listening to EC Africa 100 on Africa Business Radio. Join the conversation. #ECAfrica100.